This one's gonna be a little more off the cuff. I wrote some notes just so I don't forget what I was talking about, but like, when you get a really good pair of speakers in, there's the immediate thought of like, hey, I need to do this justice and go over the specs and listen critically and all that stuff. But like, also selfishly, like one of the reasons I got into this was like, I get to hear speakers that I would never normally get a chance to like live with for any reasonable amount of time. And then I just want to listen to all my favorite music through it. And with the Focal Aria Evo X's, that was the speaker. Like it was a large floor standing speaker. There's like 3 bass drivers, a dedicated mid, amazing treble. Everything I played through it via the Cambridge Evo 150 sounded phenomenal. And then I found myself just outside of the review, just pulling out all my favorite music and then listening to it again, because anytime you get a new anything in and you play your favorite music through it, you're almost hearing it again for the first time, especially if the product is really, really good. One of those albums was an album that I admittedly slept on back in the day. Like, I didn't really like check for it when it came out, and it wasn't until years later that like I really realized how amazing this album was and how much of a game changer it was at the time it came out, because I only discovered it slowly over the years following its release. And that album is Sawtooth from Jonny L. The first track that I heard of it, I think everyone in like the drum and bass rave scene heard Piper at some point. Like it just was part of everyone's mix, and it wasn't really my tune. I didn't really like it that much. And I heard the name Jonny L, but I was like, yeah, okay, this is kind of a song. But then one day I picked up a mix CD. It was like, I think it was for like Mix Mag or something like that. And the DJ that mixed it was Doc Scott, now my favorite producer slash DJ of like my current favorite drum and bass DJ. I listen to his show Future Beats all the time. And the lead track on that mix CD was, I'm going to butcher this name, I think it's Tychonic Cycle or Tychonic. It's got to be Tychonic Cycle. Here's the word. But like, he led with that track and I was immediately hooked. Like that tune instantly became like top 10 for me. Like it's a track that has everything. It's got a great break. It's got great bass line. It's got great like atmospherics in it. It's got everything. And you don't really want that song to ever end. It just kind of keeps rolling and it sounds phenomenal. And then years later, like, or maybe a year or two later, maybe a year later, it all time kind of blends. But there was a DJ, there was a radio show. It was like happened at late at night, and it was kind of like the early days of like internet radio. And there was a DJ, I think his name was Tommy Ilfingers. Yeah, I can never get his name right, but it's like Tommy Ilfingers, and he played another track off the album. It's called Let You, and he kind of mixed it into like, I think it was like a Ram record or something like that. I forget exactly. But I remember like he mixed this song in, and it was like, he was a really good DJ, and he would do like sometimes like these long mixes where he just kind of layers one track over the other. And when he dropped I Let You over that tune, again, I was like, what is this song? This sounds amazing. And in those days, like, I think everyone did, we used to just tape the radio. And so I immediately hit record. I was like, what is this? Or I think I had it recording. I just always used to record cassettes, I think, I'm not sure. I think I was pretty much recording the entire set. Either way, I listened to that mix over and over again. I just thought it was amazing. And I was just like, what is this tune? And a lot of times in those days, like DJs didn't really say like, up next, we're playing like this song. They just ran the mix, and they just kind of left you with a great mix, and you were just kind of left wondering what that song was. And if you talked to the right person and you remembered what song, like you could describe the song adequately at that time, you might be able to find it. But I didn't. And it just became one of those songs that went into the ether of just like, I love this song. I don't know what it is, and maybe one day I'll find it, maybe not. And yeah, later on, I bought a magazine, and there was like a CD in it, And on that CD was a bunch of different music, and it wasn't a great mix, but like one thing they played was it was like the guy that did the strings for Massive Attack, Craig Armstrong. It was a track called Weatherstorm. It's like an overly dramatic sort of sounding strings tune. And then they mixed another Jonny L song into it. The track is, okay, so it was called Wish You Had Something. And they mixed the beginning of that track over the end of Weatherstorm. It sounded really cool. And I just listened to that over and over again. And I also now knew that there was 2 tracks from Jonny L that I love. It's I Wish You Had Something and Taconic Cycle. And now I knew that I probably should grab this guy's album, not knowing that Let You is also on this album among other songs. And so I missed the sort of purchase window for that vinyl, and I didn't really buy CDs. I didn't really think much of them at that time. Like, I pretty much just bought vinyl. But I missed sort of the purchasing window. Like, that album had sold out pretty much everywhere, and you couldn't really find it anywhere in stores locally. And at that time, I didn't really buy mail order. I just kind of, if it was available in my bubble of Toronto, then I could buy it. But if it wasn't, it was just like I was SOL. So yeah, I was pretty much only left with that mix CD from which to enjoy the music, and like the tape of I Let You, and then the other CD of like Taconic Cycle. And so like, I missed the purchase window for this vinyl. I could probably buy it on CD, but I didn't really think much of CDs at that time. Like, I like buying things on vinyl. I like mixing them together on my decks, and like that was kind of my thing. And if it was sold out in stores in my bubble of Toronto, I didn't really buy things via mail order. That like it was gone. It was like there was no way I was going to get it. And so I sort of held on to this one point, and it doesn't really make tons of, I mean, it makes sense if I'm trying to justify not buying something, where like a lot of times, like I would hear something in the mix, and then I'd go to the store and buy it, and then I had to bring it home, and it just didn't sound great to me for some reason. I was just like, oh, what's missing? And I remember there's this DJ, Paulie Lopez. He used to run a show called Vibes and Stuff in Toronto, and like he told me something where it's just like a lot of times you'd hear something in the mix, and it sounds amazing in the sequence that it was played, and then sometimes when you bring it home, it just doesn't sound the same. Like, it doesn't have the same vibe because you're used to hearing it in that sequence. And I fell in love with a lot of this music from Jonny L in sequence. I heard it like a Taconic Cycle at the top mixed into something else. I Let You in an amazing mix over something else. I heard Wish You Had Something mixed over something else. So like, I was maybe okay with the fact that like maybe I wouldn't own this album right away. I could just kind of enjoy it for how I consume the music at that point and just enjoy it that way. And then it wasn't until like I illegally downloaded everything off LimeWire, and then I listened to the album and I was like, oh, this album is incredible. I could listen to this from beginning to end all the time. It sounds amazing. Why didn't I pick this up? I kicked myself to this day. But now I own the single for Taconic Cycle, but it's like, it's an old grimy 12-inch, and I think it's like 2 tracks per side. It's not like single-sided 45 RPM. It's not what I ideally would want. This is the Jonny L album or single that I have, and like, yeah, it's like Taconic Cycle is like here, and there's another song. What's on after? Stranger Nature or something. And like, it just bums me out that it's 33. I wish it was something else. What's on this piece? I don't think I've ever looked through this. Oh, it's got the Photek remix of Two of Us on here. I'm going to listen to this after. But yeah, I wish I had the full vinyl copy. Maybe one day I'll just pick it up after all these days or years, but like, I don't know. The other album is Modus Operandi from Photek. I am a massive Photek fanboy, especially his earlier works. There's like just something about the way these tunes are made, and like the precision in chopping up his breaks and the attention to detail. It's just so far ahead of its time. And I say that a lot with like like electronic music, primarily like drum and bass, where like a lot of this music was made from dudes in their bedrooms or a small closet and not like a big, huge studio. And what they were able to produce with the limited tools they had was pretty incredible. And this guy's music stands the test of time. Like, and it's not just this album. Like, one of my favorite singles is Naitek Ichi Ryu, or the Two Swords Technique. And like, I've bought that piece of vinyl about 3 or 4 times, like one of which hasn't been played, one of which is just beat to shit. And like it's, I find an excuse to mix it into anything that I'm ever playing. I just think it sounds really good. But like this album, like the names off the top of my head, of course it's unlabeled because it's Photek, but like, what's that track? LF1. Again, massive distortion up front, and just like it just rolls out into something else. And it's just like, it was unlike any other type of tune that was really being made at that time. And the whole album just kind of fits together so cohesively, and just, it's wonderful. Incidentally, even when we went to the Macintosh House of Sound, I played a couple of Photek tunes off of this album just because they sounded incredible. And actually, there was one of his new ones, Infinity, which isn't as great, but like when we had like that one of the rooms that like they're just bragging about like how powerful, how bass heavy these speakers were, and I played Infinity off the top, and it's just like, it's, if you haven't heard it, it's all sub for like the first minute or so, and you can see the dude at House of Sound be like, oh, let me just turn this down a little bit. I'm like, no, the drums haven't kicked in yet, we haven't heard anything. So it was fun. But for those of you wondering that just haven't listened to a lot of drum and bass before, like, this album would probably be the one to pick up if you just kind of want to hear like that experimentation and inventiveness of the early days of drum and bass, where like there's a lot of jazz elements in it, and just like, I'd recommend that album as a first start. Where did I put it? It's on CD. I have another dumb story here. It's this one. It's please don't muck this up. It's Snivilization from Orbital, and I'm not going to go on record and say that this is a great album. It's a classic, definitely, but I only listened to 2 songs on it. There's Are We Here, which is that big electronic epic of a tune, and then the other one, which I might actually prefer more, it's Sad But True. And I heard both of these songs on 2 different radio shows. Again, community radio was pretty epic in the 80s, 90s, and early aughts in Toronto, where like Toronto, while maybe we didn't have all the big acts in like music, but we had some of the great DJs, and all those DJs took to community radio or like college radio stations to play, like have radio shows. And so 2 of which were James St. Bass did Hard Drive on CIUT radio, and that was like, it started off at like Sunday afternoons, and then following that was like this guy called Chris Toomey that did New Powers. And so James St. Bass played Are We Here, I believe, and then Chris Toomey played Sad But True, and they were like 2 totally different, like the Hard Drive show was more like ravey, sort of like electronic music, like you know, like I forget all the genres off the top of my head, but it was more like stuff that you'd hear at a party. And then Chris Toomey's show was a bit more just like the other stuff, like you wouldn't really hear at places. And it was more like ambient, more of like some of the industrial stuff he'd play, and just like all the, I guess, I don't know what to describe. Is that left field? I don't know what to call it, but the other stuff. And like the track Sad But True, like it's a pretty standard techno, I think, song, and like, you know, it kind of rolls and it builds, and then all of a sudden it just starts turning into something else altogether, and there's a singer on it, and like, if you haven't heard the track, just fire it up. I think it's still kind of holds up to this day. Like, it's a track that was made a long time ago, but it's well made, and I still love it. Sounds really good. And then the other track is Are We Here, and that was, again, like about as epic of a techno-y song that could exist back then. Like, it was just, it sort of had everything. And this was another one that kind of like, it slowly builded slowly built, and then it just turned into something else altogether, like especially in that last sort of climax sort of thing. And like, don't count myself as a music historian in any way. I just kind of like consume the media, and then I apply my own feelings to it as far as like my own experiences. And that's kind of like what, you know, like I never look into how songs were made. I just kind of listen to them for what they are. Like, I don't know if there's a good explanation for this, like where, like I like to draw and paint and I like art, but I don't ever look into the history of art. And like when my own stuff goes out, like it's kind of like incumbent on the person consuming it to kind of like describe what they're feeling. It's no longer yours. It's kind of like mine in my moment. And so that's kind of how I look at all music. Like I don't really care what they were thinking or feeling. It's kind of like how I think and feel. Does that make sense? I don't know. Maybe I could be rambling, but like anyway, when it finally breaks down, like it sounds, I don't know, it sounds like morning to me. Like I can only imagine. I've never been to Burning Man. It sounds like a nightmare in the desert, but like in the early days of, like, I remember seeing a picture again. I think it was in like one of the Mix Mag magazines or something like that, but it was like a party in a desert, and there's this dude just kind of standing, dancing, like in like the blazing sun and wearing whatever the hell he was wearing. And like, it just like that song reminds me of that picture, if that makes sense, of just like standing around in the desert, kind of dancing to like this song breaking down in that last act of the song. And like, yeah, if you haven't heard it, take a listen. I think it's pretty incredible. Maybe I just ruined it for everyone. I don't know. But again, playing like that via the Focal is just like, again, just, that was one of those times where I was just closing my eyes and just kind of taking in that moment again, and just decided as epic as I've ever remembered it. So, yeah. Another album is this one, Planet V. It's a box set. I believe it was an 8-piece vinyl set. And it's not really like an album per se, but like here's the back, but like pretty much every tune on this was just a smash. I mean, yeah, I'm just looking at the back here. There's Adam F's Brand New Funk, DJ Die's Autumn, Function from Ed Rush and Optical, Now Is the Time from Ray Keith, DJ Slides, Slide Away, Wind Rush from Ronnie Size. Like, there are so many good tunes on here, and every sort of edition of Planet V, like 1 and 2, were really good as well. But like, this was like DJ's best friend, like vinyl pack back then. It was just like, you could pretty much just go out with this and just play this whole thing every single night if you wanted to. Like, and a lot of DJs did. But like, Now Is the Time from Ray Keith is maybe my standout. Like, where like his tunes were pretty simple, but like there was a lot to them at the same time. Like it starts off and it's made for mixing. So like, if you don't really kind of understand drum and bass, I wouldn't recommend just playing this tune off the bat. But like, it's a tune that's like, it has a nice long intro that you can mix over the back half of another record, and then it switches into an amen with a nice deep bass, and then you kind of think that's all it's going to be, and then it switches again into something like a lot more down tempo, and it's just awesome. I love it so much. But like, there's so many tunes on this album that are just epic, and there's so many memories that I have attached to this, that it has to be listed for me. And my memories of seeing this being released and then finding out that it was like $90 or something like that, like when it first dropped, and that meant I'm going to be eating sardines on rice tonight. Like, it's just like, I don't get paid for my shoe store job for another couple of days, but I really need this album. And so I bought it when it dropped, and yeah, I just had to just deal with the fact that like, I'm not eating well for the next couple of days until I get my minimum wage salary paycheck in. But like, it was worth all of it. And if you're wondering, yeah, this list is going to be mostly drum and bass because I'm a drum and bass fiend. But this one, Ed Rush and Optical, Wormhole, again, like DJ's best friend, like every track on this was pretty epic. And it was like, I don't know how to describe it. Dark funk would probably be the best description. Like, it was definitely on the darker end of the spectrum as far as like drum and bass goes. But there was still like a funk element and just the way the drums were and like the bass lines were. It was really cool. But yeah, I mean, there's so many tunes on here that work really great in a mix and also stand alone once they drop really well as in addition to that. Like, and at this time when this dropped, I kind of include a lot of their Virus singles as part of this album just in my head, like Alien Girl and Cut Slow, and like they all kind of dropped around the same time, and that's like I kind of picked them all up together. And so for me, even though they're officially not, they're the same album. Another formative album was this one. This is actually, believe it or not, is the album. It's the Ronnie Size's Represent album. There's a lot of versions of this album that were released, and like I think it was just to make it more palatable to the wider consumer. Like I first bought it on CD, and then I immediately realized just by listening to DJs playing is I'm missing some songs from this album. And so then I had to go and search it, and like it turns out that even the vinyl release, there was like a more compact vinyl release and then a more expanded vinyl release, and the expanded one is the one that you wanted because it had everything on it. And then subsequent to that, because I think this released on Talkin' Loud Records, that they just kept releasing a remix after remix. And so like Brown Paper Bag was a single for this, and there's a Photek remix of that. And then like Watching Windows got like, I don't know how many remixes, like DJ Dio did a remix and New York and Soul did an epic remix of it. And like there was so many companion singles that released on top of this that just made the whole package feel so much more epic. And yeah, it just like re-listening to this again on the Focal Arias were just like incredible. Like Hot Stuff was a tune that I really loved. Like it's like a bass line for the first 2 minutes of the song, and like nice, beautiful, pretty ambience on top. And when the drums kick in, the drums are, you know, seemingly just, there's almost no low end on the drums to my ears, but when they kick in, it all kind of knits together perfectly. Even like Morse Code is another good tune, or yeah, it's just, there's so many good tunes on this, all worth listening to. Yeah, it sounded incredible. And then when it comes to like modern drum and bass, like my bias is generally to the older stuff just because it all came out on vinyl. And like, I mean, look at this Represent album. Like like I don't know how many pieces this is, like 8 or 9 or something like that, but like there's a lot in here. And like the newer stuff like also sounds amazing, and I'm discovering new music all the time. But like there's a little less, like, because the physical medium is so much more expensive these days, like I'm less and less inclined to like pick up any vinyl. Like I picked up 2 pieces. It was like Gremlins and Justice's new album, and then it was an Exit like compilation LP that had a track from Synchro on it that I really wanted to like hear and get my hands on. I loved it. But like those 2 together cost me like $50, and then shipping on top of that was another like $30. So like all in all, I'm like $80 for like 2 albums. Just not as affordable anymore versus just like streaming it or like buying the digital copy that I will eventually just use in a mix on like on Record Box or something like that. But like, because the physical media is no longer there, it's like my attachment to the songs isn't quite there anymore. Like it's not like I don't get to look at the artwork or just like the ownership of the physical media and the romantic nature of that. I think like it's kind of gone in a lot of the music that I'm consuming now, which is probably why it doesn't make my top lists anymore. It's just kind of like I listen to it and then it kind of just disappears. And yeah. All right. But all that aside, like now I have to go and disconnect these speakers and pack them away in their boxes and get them back off to Focal. I'm going to miss them dearly. I say this a lot in videos where it's like, oh my God, these speakers are amazing. And you're like, there's the element of clickbait in that a little bit, but like also like, I haven't really heard a bad speaker or product in my time in reviewing, maybe minus one thing. It was like I don't want to mention it. It was like a tabletop all-in-one radio thing, and like it was too touted as one thing, but it really just sounded like poo. So that was maybe one thing, but like everything else that I've gotten to review has pretty much sounded great. But it's just that extra level of just like everything. Like I have a penchant for 3-way floor standing speakers. This one was one of the largest ones, one of the prettier ones, and also that Focal sound signature where it just feels like the mid bass has a little bit of an extra bump to it. Or I'm all in. I adore the way these speakers sound, and if there's a chance for me to ever get them back, I'm definitely gonna jump on it. And at least for now, I'm happy that I got to like revisit some of my favorite tunes via said Focals. And yeah, thanks Focal for the opportunity.